It all begins with Carag, a boy who can transform into an animal and lives with his. Although he has the ability to turn, he spends most of his time as a puma, and he is strictly forbidden from having contact. But over the years, his curiosity about the human world grew too strong. So one day, he decided to leave his family behind and ended up being adopted one morning while having breakfast with his new parents and siblings. Carag sees a disturbing piece of news lately. There have been several animal attacks and strange accidents involving goodbye to his father and siblings. He gets into the car with his Anna. His sister Melody insists on coming along on the drive to Carag's news. The boy notices something odd. Two crows are closely following them. He can't help but wonder if they, too, might be shapeshifters like him. By nightfall, the family stops. The crows continue to trail them. That same night, a noise wakes Carag. When he looks out the window, he sees a pack of wolves running toward the lights of the building across the street go out. The next morning, the family continues their journey until, hours later, they finally arrive at Clearwater High School. As soon as he steps out of the car, Carag confirms his suspicions. The crows that had been following them are. At that moment, Lisa, the principal, appears. She greets him, curiously asks Anna how she found him. Anna explains that nothing was ever known about Crow. When she worked as a social worker, she received a call to rescue a child in danger. When she saw how frightened and take him home and convinced her husband to adopt him. Over time, start middle school. She received an invitation to enroll him at Clearwater High. She thought it was the perfect since he had always felt out of place in the city. After answering all the questions, Lisa asks to speak to Carag alone. Then she reveals something he never imagined hearing. At this school, everyone no longer has to hide who he is. Just then, the school alarm goes off. Lisa steps outside to see what's happening and finds Anna and Melody walking casually area of the campus. She orders her assistant to escort them out immediately. Carag, on the other hand, is amazed. So many shapeshifters gathered in one place. As he walks through the halls, he runs into Jeffrey and his pack. The encounter is tense, and an immediate rivalry sparks. James steps in before things can escalate. After the official welcome ceremony at the school, says goodbye to her son. She and Melody head back to the car just as Andrew, the wealthy man who funds the institution, arrives. Carag meets him shortly and, in confidence, admits that he left life in the mountains because he felt there was something more to being than just a puma, something he could never discover. He stayed there forever. When Carag reaches his dorm, the principal explains the school's basic rules. Once she leaves him alone, a squirrel appears. Carag lets it in and discovers it's not an ordinary squirrel. It's Holly, who has been assigned as his guide to help him in his first transformation class. In class, the teacher reminds everyone that will not to be seen by humans while practicing their shapeshifts. Carag is chosen to demonstrate his powers in front of everyone. But just before he can transform, Brandon steps forward. The bison boy shifts into his animal form, unable to stay human for long, and quickly loses control. That, Carag feels insecure, and since he is not in tune with his animal side, he decides not to transform. With Lisa's help, he recalls moments from his past life, when he ran freely through the forest. That memory connects him to his true essence and finally pushes him to reveal his. At that moment, the principal orders everyone present to do the same, and Carag discovers that most of the students are wolves. Lisa explains that here, he will learn to balance his two natures, human and animal, in order to become a mediator. Resting in his room, he receives an unexpected visit from Brandon, who announces that he'll be his new roommate. Shortly after, Holly shows up to tell him it's time for dinner in the cafeteria. There, Carag meets Dorian into a cat. Before arriving at the school, Dorian had lived as a pet with a human family until they caught him opening a can of sardines with his own hands. After Carag revealed his animal form, many began to respect him, though some also feared him. For the weaker students especially, his mere presence was intimidating. One boy who transformed but ended up crossing paths with Jeffrey and getting into danger. Carag doesn't hesitate to step in and defend him, which only causes more problems. The wolves try to intimidate him, but James arrives just to pick up the fight. That night, Carag dreams of his family until a loud crash wakes him up. Brandon had accidentally transformed in his sleep and destroyed his bed. He explains it happens was peaceful as he thought. The next day in combat class, Borda and Brandon are chosen to fight. However, the bison refuses to battle and leaves the field, declaring that he's a pacifist. The teacher then selects Carag. Since the boy still doubts himself, Andrew offers him a small pouch of puma stinks. The moment he smells it, he transforms, and despite being smaller than Borda, he manages to overpower him with strength and determination. Then it's Dorian's turn, but the nauseating stench of his opponent drives the cat to run off. Handing over the victim, Andrew approaches Carag and offers to be his mentor. He even gives him the pouch of puma urine, assuring him that he has a promising future. This sparks Jeffrey's jealousy, as he can't stand seeing the school sponsor paying so much attention to the newcomer, so he challenges Carag to a duel against the wolves. That afternoon, Carag meets with his friends in the treehouse and tells them what happened. Worried, Brandon warns him of the risk of being expelled, but Carag is to support him in the fight. And though nervous, Brandon admits he can't wait to see those wolves finally get what they deserve. That very night, Carag, Holly, and Brandon sneak out of the dorm. Before leaving, Carag smells the pouch of puma urine to connect with his animal side and then transforms. When they arrive at the dueling spot, he asks who his opponents will be but soon realizes wolves. He's surrounded by Jeffrey and his entire pack. Even so, Carag doesn't back down them individually, but being outnumbered, the wolves attack him from behind, eventually ganging up on him all at once. Seeing the danger, Holly shoves Brandon off a cliff so that he can leap down to hell. While the bison distracts the wolves, Carag fights back with all his. Jeffrey and his pack have no choice but to retreat and accept defeat. The next morning in class, James notices that several students are injured and although they try to come up with excuses, it's obvious they fought the night before. Just as Carag is about to be questioned, he receives an unexpected invitation. Andrew wants to go for a drive with him. During the ride, Carag realizes that the millionaire, according to Andrew, a true puma shouldn't have needed help to defeat those wolves, even if it was for against one. Since Carag left his biological family too soon, he never learned how to hunt. Andrew then decides to teach him because he wants to turn him into a complete. After their outing, he takes Carag back to the school, but Lisa intercepts them. Upset, she forbids Andrew from giving Carag or any other student special treatment. Then she speaks directly to the boy. If he wants to stay there, he must follow the rules like everyone else and never fight outside again. When Lisa leaves, Holly and Brandon show up to find out what happened. At that moment, Carag sees Lou heading into the forest and decides to follow her. Together, they overhear a group of teachers talking against those creatures didn't act on their own shapeshifters or behind it. The greatest danger is that if humanity coexistence between the two species will be. That's why Lisa and the council must find a way to back to school. Carag confesses that during his trip with his mother and Melody, he saw for wolves attacking humans and he's convinced it was Jeffrey and his pack. The next day, just as he promised, Andrew takes Carag into the forest to teach him his first hunting lesson. He explains that the more Carag practices transformation, the easier it will become to control both of each. Before attacking, a puma must choose its prey, watch it from a distance, and prepare the ambush. Carag tries and they share the meal and on their way back to school. Andrew confides that he once had a daughter who, if she had lived, would be the same age as Carag. Later, during recess, Lou notices that Carag isn't eating and asks if he's not hungry. He tells her that earlier that morning he and caught his first prey. Upon hearing this, Lou falls silent, stands up, and walks away remembering the day when a puma attacked her mother, leaving her permanently scarred. Wanting to make things right, Carag follows her into the forest, but no matter how hard he tries, he can't catch up to her. That night, while trying to sleep in his room, Carag hears Jeffrey's howls. Curious, he looks out the window and sees the pack plotting something in secret. Driven by suspicion, He decides to follow them to the nearest town, there into a factory. Just as he catches them in the act, the wolves realize he's been following them and begin. Andrew suddenly appears and stops everything. He orders the wolves back to the car and drives them all to the school. Afterward, he asks Carag to stay with him alone. That's when the truth comes out. Andrew is the one behind the recent attacks. The revelation deeply wounds Carag, who feels he never should have trusted his mentor. Andrew, however, opens up to him. He tells him that years ago, he lost his wife and daughter when a hunter killed them in the forest. Since then, he has lived with a growing hatred of humans, convinced that they have subjugated animals and caused the extinction of the school's council has tried to influence humans to take care of nature, but nothing has changed. On the contrary, everything is getting worse. That is why Andrew has decided to take matters into his own hands. At that moment, a woman arrives with dinner. Carag notices that she has a mechanical leg. Andrew explains that she is a snake shapeshifter who was run over by a car. One invites Carag to join his plan. The boy refuses. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. Andrew replies that his goal isn't to harm humans directly, but to sabotage their machines in order to slow down projects that destroy habitats and wipe out animals. Carag promises to think about what he's proposing and, for now, to keep the secret. The next morning, he helps Brandon train. The bison runs clumsily through the forest, knocking down everything in his path until he is accidentally hit by the car of Carag's adoptive parents, who had traveled to visit him. Trying to cover up the situation, Carag runs to greet them and invites them to see his room. Once things and receives a scolding from the principal, who reminds her that visits have specific schedules. Before leaving, Anna tells Carag that she will be staying in a nearby town for the weekend and invites him to join her. He accepts without hesitation, while his family heads off to repair the car. Shortly after, Carag receives a call from Andrew, who invites him to a special event that same weekend, but the boy refuses, explaining that he'll be spending time with his family and making it clear that he doesn't approve of harming humans. Andrew abruptly hangs up, leaving Carag uneasy. To clear his mind, he decides to go into the forest several kilometers until Wing appears, worried because he had been gone for hours. While they talk, a drone appears in the sky. Wing recognizes it. It's a hunter's, and he has already released dogs to track the puma. Carag runs and hides among the treetops, but the drone follows him. In a desperate attempt to protect him, Wing destroys the device and shouts at Carag to keep running. After running for a long while, Carag finally stops to catch his breath. That's when Shadow, one of the crow girls, appears and throws him some clothes so he can return his friends. The boy manages to make it back to school, but just as he's about to step onto campus, exhaustion overtakes him and he faints. Fortunately, Andrew finds him and takes him to his house. Andrew what happened in the forest and can't help but wonder if the same thing that happened to Andrew's wife and daughter also happened to his own real family. The thought troubles him so much that he makes a decision to support the millionaire's project and join his fight against humans. Before their first mission, Andrew confesses that he sent some shapeshifters to search for Carag's biological family and promises that if they are still alive, they will find them. Soon after, Carag receives a call from his adoptive mother, who tells him she'll have to cancel the trip because she remembered an important appointment. At that moment, Brandon and Holly appear, worried about him, but Carag growing more distant orders them to leave. Then he departs with Andrew and the others toward the mine. Once there, Andrew divides the group. Carag's task is to keep the forest animals away, while Jeffrey and the wolves are supposed to evacuate the workers to prevent injuries. After scaring off some rabbits, Carag is horrified to discover that his parents are camping very close by. Filled with fear, he calls Andrew, who insists he saw them in the valley and assures him they're not in danger. Even so, the tension rises. Workers feel threatened by the wolves and flee in a truck. As soon as the humans drive away, Dan climbs into the vehicle to release the piled logs. Carag begs him to stop, warning that his family could be in danger. At that moment, Brandon and Holly arrive to back him up, making the situation even and Wing appear flying overhead. The wolves panic. They don't want to be reported to the principal or risk expulsion. So they abandon the mission and run away from the mother. Try to reason with Derek. She tells him there are better ways to stop the mind, that destroying everything will only provoke retaliation from humans. But Derek doesn't listen. He shoves Lou, and that enrages the crows, who immediately attack him. Furious, Derek tries to the fight to protect his friends. Holly joins in as well, and Carag, now in his puma form, manages to throw Dan out of the vehicle. Just then, Andrew steps in. He removes the logs blocking the truck's wheels, and the vehicle begins to move. Feeling betrayed, Andrew lunges at Carag, and the two of them fight. But when Carag sees the logs roll valley where his family is, he abandons the fight and races desperately to save them. The logs tumble violently down the cliff. Anna shouts for everyone to hide, but Melody doesn't hear her. She has her headphones on. By the time she realizes what's happening, it's too late. The logs are already upon her. The girl screams in terror, but at the very last second, Carag, still in his puma form, pushes her out of danger. Anna rushes desperately to her daughter and bursts into tears when she finds her alive. Melody, still trembling, tells her that a puma saved her, though Donald insists their daughter things. Moments later, Lou and the others find Carag's body lying unconscious in the forest. For a terrifying instant, they think he didn't survive. But then the big cat opens his eyes, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief. As soon as he regains some strength, Carag gets up in a hurry to make sure his family is safe. At that moment, Andrew shows up, claiming he was close by when the accident happened. He quickly calls for a helicopter to take the family to the hospital. Fortunately, they all make it out unharmed. When Carag's adoptive parents leave safe and sound, the boy explodes with anger and warns Andrew that he'll tell the headmistress, who is really behind the attacks. But Andrew counters with a chilling revelation. He has found Carag's biological family wandering through the Yellowstone Mountains, and he will only share their exact location as it arrives. Andrew shifts the blame onto Derek, insisting he was the one who planned the assault on the humans. Although the headmistress isn't entirely convinced that Andrew had nothing to do with the mine's destruction, she decides to leave when she hears police sirens approaching. Before going, she promises to launch a full investigation into what happened. Back at the school, Carag and his friends are welcomed as heroes. The news of their actions has already spread far and wide.